Hello, Lovebugs. Welcome to another episode of Girls Night. I'm your host, Carly Dockstader. In this episode, we're going to be talking about guilt and about regret, and this is something that a lot of people struggle with. It's something that can feel really, really heavy if you don't know how to work through it and you don't know how to put those emotions down. And the reason this is so prevalent to me personally right now is because I actually had a coaching session myself with my coach earlier this week. And this is exactly the theme of what our session was about. I had been struggling with certain feelings of guilt around these two specific scenarios that we'll dive into in the episode. And I had been carrying around this guilt for literally years, for a very long time. And I had been able to work through it a little bit, but not quite enough to where it actually made a difference because it was still weighing me down, and it was still in the back of my mind with these two different situations. And so I had a really big breakthrough in the session around that guilt, around what I was feeling, and about forgiveness. And so I'm going to be sharing all of that with y'all today. So hopefully that you can get something out of it too. So let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Life can get a little crazy, so let's talk about it. If you're ready to dive deeper, talk about what really matters, and feel a little more empowered, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Dockstader. I'm a life coach, baker, dog mom of two, and you're always there for you, gal pal. And I'm so excited to have you join me. So grab your fuzzy socks, put on your comfy pants, and let's have girls' night. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be talking about guilt, and guilt is one of those things that is so it's so individualized because there's different things that different people feel guilty about, and sometimes it doesn't make sense why we feel guilty about certain things. But I was really curious about how many people actually experience that guilt, if it's a lot of people, if it's not very many people. And so I looked up some stats. So essentially, at any given time, nearly 11% of adults are experiencing guilt. And of those 11%, about a fourth of them or a quarter of them are experiencing feelings of very extreme or very strong guilt. And that's kind of a big portion. So essentially, one in every 10 people that you come across are actively feeling guilty about something that they've done or something that's happened in their past or maybe kind of recently. And guilt is one of those things that can be very, very heavy because usually guilt revolves around something that we feel like we did, and it usually involves something that we feel like we messed up or we caused harm to. And those can be kind of hard to work through. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about how you can start doing that yourself today. I feel like this situation kind of reminds me of that phrase too, time heals all wounds. We like to think that that's true, but I think that's kind of a false phrase because it's not time itself that heals our wounds. It's the act of actually going in, addressing those wounds and giving them what they need to actually heal. And sometimes that takes time in order to do those things. So I think it's a little bit misconstrued in that saying. And I've used this example before, but imagine you break your arm. I imagine it being a really bad break, like splitting straight in half. Sure, you could leave it there, just let it heal on its own and see what happens, but most likely it's not going to be set correctly. Your arm might even be bent itself. You won't be able to use your arm correctly if you just let time do its thing. And maybe it never even heals because it wasn't given the environment to actually heal properly. But imagine on the flip side, you go in, you set the arm back, you put the cast on it so it doesn't move out of place, so it actually has time to like recongeal. I don't know the medical terms for this, but so it actually has time to heal properly. And in that situation, yes, it still takes time for it to heal, but you're going in there, you're setting it, you're disinfecting it, you're making sure it stays clean, you're making sure it doesn't get disrupted in a way that's going to disrupt the healing. And then eventually it heals and it heals properly. So you're able to use your arm in a normal way again. Those are kind of the two situations of how you can think about it. So, do you want your arm, do you want your wounds to heal in a way that like kind of messes you up for the rest of your life, and so you can't really function properly because you keep getting triggered and it keeps getting re-broken and re-wounded? Or do you want to address your wounds in a way where it heals properly? Yes, maybe it still takes time, but then you're able to move forward, it's stronger, and you're not re-breaking it every time a little inconvenience happens. Those are your two choices with this. And it's not just with guilt, it's with everything. Guilt is just one of those emotions that is universally understood because we all have things that we've done that we don't feel the best about, that maybe we would go back and do differently. And because of that, I think guilt and regret are very closely linked because when you regret something, a lot of the times you also feel guilty about it. And so in this session that I had with my coach, one of the things that I had been struggling with for a really long time was this one situation with my sister. For a little bit of background, I used to be like kind of mean to my sister, especially when we were growing up. I was very jealous of her. I got into arguments with her a lot, and so I took that out on her, just like being mean to her because I felt inadequate myself. But that also went into adulthood a little bit too. Things are different between us now. And like, despite me being mean to her, like, me and my sister have always been very close still. I've always considered her to be one of my best friends. But fast forward to now, and our relationship is really different. I am very kind to her, and that's due to the fact that I have been able to go in and deal with a lot of these feelings of jealousy and inadequacy that I was projecting onto my sister. This is a little bit beside the point, but main point is that I used to be not nice to my sister. I used to be kind of mean to her. And so, fast forward to the guilt that I was feeling, there is somebody in her life that has not been treating her very well. And I've been getting so mad at this person for being mean to her. And so, in this session with my coach, we were able to work through that and kind of realize that, hey, like, actually, you're really mad at this person because it's reminding you about how you used to treat her. So it's triggering that guilt inside of you for the way that you used to treat her and the mean ways that you used to treat her. So that was the first big breakthrough, is that it was actually triggering that guilt for me for how I used to treat her because I didn't know how to like resolve that within myself and come to terms with the fact that I used to be so mean to her. So that was the first big breakthrough. And then the second thing that this is related to, there's a second memory that this whole situation is related to. And I think it's important for me to share both just because when you're in this process yourself, it's going to feel like random things come up for you, but they're always connected in some sort of way. So it's always important to follow the path of the memories that your brain and that your body is taking you down as you're exploring these feelings. So for me, one of the ones that it was related to was with my sister. And the second memory that this guilty feeling it was related to was with one of my exes. And in this situation, I broke things off with him before I was actually ready to break things off with him. And I did it because I thought that's what I should be doing. I thought that that's like the normal thing to do, that it was what was expected, and I was scared of people judging me. So I broke things off with him before I was actually ready to, but during this time, he was having a really hard time. He was dealing with a lot of stuff in his personal life. One of his friends had actually committed suicide, and so he was dealing with that. And so I was carrying all this guilt around breaking things off with him when he was in the aftermath of all these other like really heavy things that he was dealing with. There's more to the story. I don't have to share all the details with you guys, but the guilt was there about one, breaking things off with him before I was ready, and two, breaking things off with him when he was going through a hard time himself. And to me, the guilt was there for obvious reasons because I felt like I was not able to be there for this person that I, in every sense of the word, said that I really, really cared about. And then to me, it felt like I abandoned him in a time where he probably needed me the most. So that's where my first portion of guilt in this situation came. The second portion in the situation comes from the fact that I was disappointed in myself because I felt like I betrayed my own moral values because I really am the person to stick with the people that I love the most, even when they're not being the kindest to me, because I understand that like there's just stuff that we go through sometimes that makes us not show up the best. And so, in breaking things off with him, just because I felt like it's something I should be doing because that's what everybody else was saying, I felt like I abandoned my own moral values just so I could have that external approval from the other people around me because I thought that they would approve of me breaking things off because it's what I should be doing. So, for this situation, it was also layered, but there were a couple feelings of guilt there. And what I had been dealing with for a very long time, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate with this, specifically with this second situation, I struggled for a long time between sometimes I felt like I took the wrong path with that situation, and sometimes I felt like I took the right path with that situation. But I could never quite come to a consensus on exactly which of those feelings I felt like was the truth. And so it was always this back and forth of sometimes I felt good about the decision I made and sometimes I felt really shitty about the decision that I made. And so this is where the guilt creeps into because I was just never quite able to pinpoint where exactly it was coming from. So long story short, feeling all this guilt about this situation. And so, in this session with my coach, we dove into these feelings of guilt and essentially how these sessions work. And this is very, very basic, a very basic understanding of how we do this. But essentially, you dive in. I close my eyes. I let the energies essentially come to me, the emotions come to me, and they come in a personified way. And they always look a little bit different. So one of the figures was this like greenish, like this greenish like version of me with like really dark hair and like orange eyes that popped up, and that was my guilt. Like that's the personification of my guilt. And then off to the corner there was like this more shadowy figure that was also calling my attention. And so in these sessions, it's really important to be very in tune with your body and with what you're feeling, but you're supposed to give all of your attention to the emotions that are calling your name. In these sessions, you essentially just ask the emotions what they need from you, what they're trying to tell you. And sometimes it takes more than one session to really get to the bottom of it, but it's really just meeting those different parts of yourself so you understand what they're like. It's also important to address where you're feeling it in your body. So for me, guilt shows up right here on my shoulders that are like kind of like the shoulders that are like by your neck right here. That's where it shows up for me. And it's so funny because for the past couple months, I felt a lot of tension in my shoulders, and it didn't matter what I did, I could not get it to go away. But after we came to all these conclusions, all of that tension in my shoulders just melted away. My shoulders felt more relaxed than they had in a really, really long time. But I digress. So at the end of the session, me and my coach went through all these different emotions. We addressed them. And then by the end, I actually had this flip in my thinking. At the beginning of the session, I was caught between and wavering between whether it was the wrong path or the right path. But by the end, that perspective had changed just slightly. But it was in a slight way that was so significant because by the end, it's like, I was asking myself, was it the wrong path or was it the path I needed to take? And that was so freeing to me because it meant, hey, maybe it didn't have to be the wrong path or the right path. Maybe it was just the path that I was supposed to go down either way. And because of this session, and I've reflected on it a lot, I've come to realize that just because the path is harder doesn't mean it's wrong. And just because the path is easy doesn't mean it's the right path. Because sometimes the path that has thorns and mud puddles and spiders and the logs that trip you up and the dark, scary, glowing eyes in the distance is the exact path that we need to be on in order to further us on our journey, in order to learn more about ourselves, in order to grow as a person. Because when you really think about it, like yes, we can like learn things from like the good times, but a lot of our major growth comes from the times of adversity. So when you're sitting here asking for more patience or for more empathy or how to love better, you're going to be given situations where those things are tested and you're forced to show up in those ways even when it's hard to show up in those ways. And those hard paths that we go down, they're all here to teach us something about ourselves. And it is so easy to fall in the trap of victimhood when it comes to things like that because it's so easy to have the thought process of why is this happening to me? Like, why does the world hate me? Like, why is the world out to get me? Like, this sucks. Why isn't this happening to anybody else? Why is this so hard for me and so easy for everybody else? All of those thought patterns can be really easy to fall into. But when you change the narrative from right or wrong to, hey, maybe this is just what I needed to take, then it takes a lot of that pressure off and it takes a lot of that guilt off because it changes the way that your brain is thinking from, hey, why is this happening to me? This sucks. Like, I hate it here to, hey, like, what is this trying to teach me? Like, what am I supposed to learn from this? And did I actually ask to go down this path to get to a certain point for myself? So, my question for you in whatever scenario you're thinking about right now where you're feeling really guilty, where can you let some of those assumptions go of it being right or wrong? And then where can you also let the comparisons go between you and other people around you or other situations that you have been through? Comparison is never helpful, especially when you're on the hard part of your journey. Like, you have no idea the hard parts that other people have gone through because people tend to hide that. People don't tend to be as forthcoming with the harder or the more embarrassing or the more shameful parts of their journey. So you have no idea unless you're really close with someone what they've actually been through. So you're really comparing yourself to a mirage of somebody else's life that you have no idea about the deeper parts of it. So just let the comparisons go, let the assumptions go where you can. That is the first step on healing all this guilt that you're feeling. Hi, Love Bug. I've got a juicy little gift for you. And if you've been feeling off, stuck in your head, or like your vibe just is not vibing lately, then this is for you. I created a free guide called The 3 Secrets to Creating a Magnetic Energy Shift right now. And it's exactly what you need to start shifting your energy instantly. These are the exact tools I use with my private coaching clients when they're ready to stop chasing and start attracting. We're talking powerful, we're talking practical, and yes, of course, we are talking a little bit woo, but in the best possible way. In the guide, you will learn how to clear energetic blocks, activate your most irresistible frequency, shift into receiving mode, and there's even a bonus secret on how to use your body language to instantly boost your confidence and presence. So if you're ready to feel like the version of you who turns heads, magnetizes opportunities, and walks through the world like the main character, then this is your sign. Head to the show notes and click the link to download your free copy. It is quick, it is powerful, and it is going to leave you feeling like, damn, I really am that girl. All right, let's get back into the episode. And one of the biggest things that you can do in addition to that to relieve yourself of this guilt is to start working towards forgiving yourself for the past. And this relates directly to what I was saying just a few minutes ago. So I'll use the situation with my sister as an example because I felt a lot of that guilt was because I felt like she was in this situation where this person was treating her poorly. I thought she was in that situation because of me. Like, there was a tie there where I felt like it was because of me. And so there was a lot of guilt tied around that. But because of this realization I had, like, hey, these hard paths that I went down, maybe it's just what I needed to grow. And to be fair, I did grow a lot from those situations that I mentioned. Maybe that's just the path that she needed to go down too. And maybe I was the catalyst for it. But if I wasn't the catalyst for it, then somebody else would have been, or a different situation would have been. I truly believe that we come into this life to learn certain lessons. There's certain things that we are meant to experience. And whether you experience through one person or through the next, you're still going to experience that lesson in the way that you need to experience it. So that change in perspective has actually really freed me because it's taking all of the blame that I was putting onto myself for this other person's life and saying, like, hey, maybe this is something that she needed to experience to grow. And hey, maybe this is something that I needed to experience to grow. And it just let me release that guilt, release that resentment, and release that regret in a way that I hadn't been able to release it before. And so when you're working on forgiving yourself, I think the very first thing that you need to do is to be very honest with yourself about the situation you're feeling guilty about. So be radically honest about what happened in the situation, about what your role was in that situation, about how you're feeling about yourself and about how you showed up in that situation, because then you have a baseline for what you can actually address. And then you want to go in and you want to actually look at those feelings head on, and you want to, one, understand what they're trying to tell you, and two, part of it is understanding that there could be something else, right? So instead of being like, oh, this is my fault, like, is there something else that this could mean? So looking at all those negative feelings and saying, like, hey, is there something else that I'm supposed to learn here? What else is this trying to tell me? What else is this trying to teach me? That's the very first step that you can take to start forgiving yourself. So to summarize, be radically honest with yourself about what the situation is, what the emotion is, what you're feeling about it, what you're feeling about yourself because of that situation. And two is to question your beliefs around that situation. And then the next thing that you can do too, in addition to this, is to just really start getting familiar with who you are and what you want for your life, and get really familiar with who you want to be, because those can be your guiding lights in the future as you're making these decisions. And when you're in that place of being very grounded in who you are and knowing yourself and knowing what you want for your life and knowing the type of person that you want to be, then you can make decisions based off of that almost like moral compass that you have for yourself and for your life and for your person. And are those decisions going to be perfect every single time? No. We're always going to make decisions that maybe, hey, we wish we could have made a different one. But at the end of the day, like you learned something from it and you grew from it. So even if it was quote unquote the wrong decision, it actually ends up being the right decision because at the very least, you get to learn from something and you get to grow yourself and you get to make a better decision the next time around. Also, part of this is trying to just show up better starting now. So I think that's it for me. Hopefully, y'all found it helpful and had some insights yourself. And to end the episode, I'll ask y'all in turn, was it the wrong path or was it the path you needed? Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, then go ahead and subscribe so you get updates with us every week. You can also follow us on Instagram at KRC Coaching. If you're interested in working one-on-one, then go ahead and visit our website, krccoaching.com, to book your first 30-minute session for free. All right, thanks so much, you guys. Love you. Bye.